Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm very happy to be here today to tell you all about Zoom and how you can easily learn to use it like a pro. I always like to have an agenda at these things so that I know what's coming up and what will be covered. So today I'll be talking to you about using Zoom both as a participant and a host. I'll give you some troubleshooting tips and some helpful resources. So let's get going. The first half of this presentation is going to cover how you can be more of a pro while attending meetings. And the first thing to know about is that there are actually three ways that you can access Zoom. You can go through the web portal at zoom.us to access all of your Zoom meetings. This will launch a meeting from within a browser. You can even just access Zoom through an invite without signing in, and this will launch a meeting in a browser. But this web portal is where you can customize meetings you'll be hosting, set up templates, personalize your account information, set up calendar integration, and if you're an admin, manage the users in your organization. But if you're going to be using Zoom often, you may also want to know about the desktop client. This application is an application that's downloaded onto your computer and will let you start meetings with a single click. You can use Zoom applications, including virtual backgrounds and avatars, as well as chat with your contacts. The third way that you can access Zoom is via the mobile app. So if you're going to be traveling but don't want to miss a meeting, you can download this app to your phone. It's great for chatting with your contacts as well through instant messaging. But one thing to realize here is that there are no backgrounds available on the Android mobile app. So you won't be able to disguise your locale if you're on an Android phone. Throughout today's presentation, when I discuss the many different features of Zoom, I will always distinguish where you can get access to that feature, whether it's available just within the web portal, just within the desktop client, or only through the mobile app. In the live session, I will be taking a poll, asking people what their preference is of how they prefer to access Zoom. Obviously, we're not going to be doing that today, so we'll just move right along. I told you about the three ways that you can access and set up meetings and settings in Zoom. And now I'd like to tell you about a really cool feature that goes along with that. You can actually jump into and out of meetings across devices without anyone in the meeting realizing it. This first pick on the left is my Zoom desktop client, which again is an app that's installed on my computer. You can see here, it's kind of small, but you can see that there is a meeting in progress listed. At this time, I was in that meeting on my phone via the Zoom app. But if you look at the switch button here, this will allow me to jump onto my computer for the rest of that meeting, if I so choose, which I did. And then the pick on the right is my mobile app on my phone, which lists a meeting in progress on my desktop computer. I can then switch myself to my phone and take that meeting to go if I choose. In the Zoom web portal, you can customize your profile. Again, at zoom.us, and you can see that on each one of these slides, I put the exact instructions of where you can access what I'm talking about. And you will see the link to today's presentation a little bit later, so you can refresh your memory after today. Once there, you would click on the profile option in the left menu. So again, go to zoom.us, sign in, and click on profile. This is where you can customize your display name that will appear within meetings, as well as your photo, which will show up when you're not using video. Also, within that profile area, if you scroll all the way down, this is where you can sync your calendar so that all of your upcoming meetings show up in your desktop client and are automatically imported from Outlook or Google Calendar, depending on which one you use. To access this, you would go to your profile via the Zoom web portal. Again, select the profile section and scroll all the way down to the bottom. Each user can only integrate with one third-party service for calendar and contact syncing at a time. But Zoom does support Google Calendar, Office 365, and Exchange for integration. Now that your profile is all set up, you can turn to customizing your meeting settings. These can be done within a Zoom meeting, which you can start yourself from within the Zoom web portal by clicking on New Meeting or Host a Meeting. You could also do this right now while we're discussing it, or the next time that you're in a Zoom meeting. When you're in a Zoom meeting, you have a menu ribbon down at the very bottom of the meeting interface, and you may need to mouse over that area in order to get it to appear. But in the bottom left corner next to the audio options is the video button. And you can see that I put a number 1 here right next to what I'm talking about. Just to the right of that video button is a little triangle with a drop-down menu. This is what you want to click in order to get to your video settings. So the first step here is to click on that triangle. The second step is to select video settings from within this menu, and then you will have a dialog box that will pop up in the middle of your screen with all sorts of setting options from general to accessibility. The settings that we'll be talking about today are the video, audio, and background and effects settings. I'll also mention here that this is where you can go to set up your keyboard shortcuts, which I'll mention a little bit later. Let's look at the first one. If you click into your video settings, some things to take note of are that you want to make sure that your camera is displaying an HD or high definition rendering of you in a meeting. The next thing is a nifty little feature called Touch Up My Appearance. This will essentially airbrush you into looking your best in your meetings. So play around with that. I also always have adjust for low light checked, as Zoom video can get very dark unless you have some sort of lighting set up right next to your computer. The last one down here that I always check is to turn off my video when joining a meeting. Why would I do this? So that I can log in, get myself settled, and then click on start video when I'm ready, so that there aren't those awkward moments while I'm fiddling around with everything. Next, let's click into the audio settings. As for some useful audio settings, be sure to pay attention to how you want Zoom to suppress your background noise. You can set this at auto, as I do, but if you've got kids, pets, or an overzealous lawnmower in your vicinity, you may want to set this to high. Down toward the bottom, I also mute myself as I join meetings, for the same reasons that I do so for video. I also check that next box so that I can just hit the space bar to quickly unmute myself. And the last section that we'll be talking about is the background and effects section. And within this area, the virtual backgrounds menu. This is where you can select one of a few backgrounds that Zoom provides for you, or you can click on this little plus sign in order to add your own photos and images. You can even mirror your video. So if you have a background with something on one side and you want to appear in front of it on the opposite side, you can move yourself over by mirroring your video. Also, within this background and effects area is the avatars menu. You may not notice this menu if you're not using the desktop client for your Zoom meetings, but this is pretty cool. You can select a skin to wear during your meetings. So if you're having a bad hair day, why not go to your meeting as a panda bear or a cat? This isn't just a simple filter which will sit in front of you. It will actually show you talking and moving as the character that you choose. And here's a glimpse at what a meeting with participant wearing avatars looks like. Something a lot of people don't know about is the fact that there are over 1,500 Zoom apps available, including collaboration apps that will integrate Microsoft Teams, Google Drive, and Dropbox right into your Zoom meetings. And not just collaboration apps, but event and scheduling apps, analytics apps, and fun apps such as virtual backgrounds. The administrator of your Zoom account must approve your apps to your user account. If that's you, great. If not, you'll need to request them. Here are just a few that I like. Virtual backgrounds offers more than 2 million high-resolution images that can be used as virtual backgrounds in your meetings. Warmly provides virtual business cards that will sit behind you as an overlay, such as the one that I use to list my title and organization. And Kahoot will embed interactive quizzes and integrate them into your Zoom meetings as well. So you would enable these through the web portal, and you can browse all of them at the marketplace.zoom.us website. That's all that I have for you on using Zoom as a participant. Now let's turn our attention to how to use Zoom like a pro as the meeting host. The first way is to customize your meeting settings. And Zoom allows you to get quite granular with this and specify everything from your Zoom meeting security to features such as polls and breakout rooms, which will be enabled during your meetings. You can only adjust these settings via the Zoom web portal. So again, you would sign in at zoom.us and select settings over on the left-hand menu. This will then open up menus for you for your meetings, your recordings, your audio conferences, etc. What we'll be talking about today are the meeting settings. And this menu consists of these 6 areas: security through other. One thing that I would like to point out here before we go any further, however, is that we are in the personal settings section of the Zoom web portal. And this is likely all that most of you will ever see. However, if you are an admin for your organization's Zoom account, you will also have an admin section below this where you can customize and lock settings for everyone in your organization. But we won't be talking about that today. Let's get back to the meeting settings menu. The meeting settings menu and areas that I'd like to point out today start with the meeting security area, which is right up at the top. And this is the area where you can specify the rules for meeting passcodes, set up waiting rooms, as well as do things like block certain users from attending your meetings. So you will definitely want to comb through this section carefully and make the selections that work for you. The scheduling meeting section and menu item is where you can do things like set up audio and video settings for your participants. For example, you can automatically mute everyone as they enter your meeting, so you don't have ringing phones and typing in the background disturbing your meeting. And then there are 2 different in-meeting sections to look through, a basic section and an advanced one. These are very large and important sections because they are where you can enable features such as polls, surveys, the ability to share your screen, whiteboards, breakout rooms, virtual backgrounds, and more. So be sure to go through these sections quite carefully as well. One other item that I will mention here is to pay attention to the small V icon that you will see hanging around some settings, particularly the newer ones. If you mouse over this little V here, you will see what version of Zoom is required in order to make some settings work. You can create and schedule meetings in any of the 3 flavors of Zoom simply by clicking on Schedule. And this is what the scheduler looks like in the Zoom web portal. You can select your date and time as well as the expected duration of your meeting. You can also set up the meeting as a recurring one here in the scheduler. But if you do go to the Zoom web portal to set up your meeting, this is where you will have the option to save your meeting as a template so that you don't need to fiddle around with the settings each time you want to set up that meeting. So let's take a look. The first step to setting up a meeting template is simply to schedule a future meeting and click Save at the bottom to save it. Once your meeting is saved, you will see it in your list of scheduled meetings. You can click on the link to the meeting in order to go back in and adjust your settings. When you do this and you scroll all the way down to the bottom where it only said save or cancel initially, you will see a lot more options available to you. One of them is to save the meeting as a template. Once you do this, each time that you go to schedule a new meeting, you will see this template drop-down menu where you can select from any of your meeting templates that you have set up. And before I go on, I just want to point out that when you do go back in, click back into a meeting as we did, you will also have the options down here to set up polls and quizzes as well as surveys. And I'll be talking more about these in just a minute, but I just want you to be aware of this. Zoom allows you to create polls, quizzes, and surveys of participants. In order to get the option to create these in advance, just like with the templates, you must first create a meeting. Once you have scheduled your meeting, simply click back in to adjust it, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you will see the option to set these up. For setting up polls, quizzes, and surveys, you will need to be in the Zoom web portal. Another thing you can do when you're scheduling a new meeting is to click into the show link next to options. Mine now says hide because I already clicked show in order to expand the options menu and show you what that looks like. This is where you can set up a group of breakout rooms and pre-assign people to them before your meeting begins. Breakout rooms are just what they sound like. They break your meeting into different rooms where people can brainstorm together and then rejoin the larger main meeting later. If you're running a conference or a very large meeting, these are really helpful to know about. You can also set these up on the fly once your meeting has started. Once you're in a Zoom meeting as the host, you'll see the breakout rooms button down toward the bottom navigation ribbon. Click here and you can either send your pre-assigned guests to their respective rooms, or you can assign them into breakout rooms at any given moment. Also on the main navigation menu of a meeting, you will see the share your screen option right here in the center. If you're the host, you can share your screen at any time and even designate co-hosts who can share their screens as well. Once you click on share screen, you get this large dialog box which will appear where you can choose to share your entire screen, meaning if you're going to be showing attendees multiple applications and browsers and jumping around to different screens, you will want to share your entire screen. That way, everything that you see on your computer, they see as well. But you can see that I could also choose to just share a particular application that I have open. I had Google Chrome open at the time, so I could have chosen just to share Google Chrome browser. But whatever you choose to share, you'll want to be aware of these two check boxes down here. If you'll be playing a video or an audio file at some point during your presentation, let's say you want to show a video clip from YouTube, you will want to have these checked. Have you ever been in a meeting where a presenter plays a video during their presentation and no one can hear it, that's because they didn't check these boxes. And finally, I want to show you this little menu down here. This is a screenshot of your navigation window when you're sharing your screen. At first, it looks like everything in the meeting has disappeared. But if you mouse over the very top of your screen, this menu ribbon will show up where you can do all sorts of things like launch polls, bring up the chat window, see the participants, etc. Another great but rarely used Zoom feature is the whiteboard, which allows everyone in a meeting to brainstorm with text and drawing tools provided for them. You can even save your whiteboard as an image and download it after the meeting. And this is a button that will appear at the bottom navigation window of Zoom when you are the host in a meeting. You can share a blank whiteboard, as you can see here, as well as previous whiteboards that you've created for meetings. But you might have a goal for an upcoming meeting, such as doing a SWOT analysis, and you don't want to start from scratch. In that case, you can create a whiteboard before your Zoom meeting that you can share with everyone to get a jump start. This is possible through the Zoom desktop client. Again, this is the Zoom application that's been installed on your computer. When you open it, you see this menu across the top. You would select whiteboards. And when you do, you'll see that Zoom has created many existing templates that you can select for your own meetings. So you can go in and play around with customizing these. Going back to the Zoom meeting area, you may want participants in your meeting to brainstorm and mark up something else collaboratively besides a whiteboard, such as a website, especially if you're doing a redesign, a PowerPoint presentation, if you've got a particular slide that you want to brainstorm on, or a document that you want to have marked up. And you can certainly do this if you know about the annotation tools that Zoom provides. These are located on the top ribbon when you are sharing your screen. They're on their own button, and you would also need to go into the More section up at the top menu in order to enable them for participants as well. But this is what those annotation tools look like. And I've gone ahead and made a quick annotation to demonstrate this. And lastly, I will point out the record option, which allows you to not only record meetings with your participants, but it's a great way to provide tutorials and screencasts as well. Simply host a meeting by yourself and click on record to demonstrate any of the library's tools and resources. You can later access all of your Zoom recordings at the Zoom web portal in the recordings area, as seen here in this screenshot. And incidentally, this is how I'm recording today's tutorial. That's it for the features of Zoom and how to use it as a pro, as both a participant and a host. But here are some troubleshooting tips if you run into difficulty as well. And I've got some recommendations, such as silencing your notifications. So this includes turning off your Outlook or other notifications on your computer, silencing your cell phone as well. I also would recommend that you go in and explore some keyboard shortcuts. These are very handy to know about. For example, Alt+M will mute everyone in a meeting where you are the host, but you can go in and set up your own by launching a meeting and going into those video settings and selecting keyboard shortcuts. And here are some resources that I recommend. The Zoom Learning Center has some fantastic courses available that you can take and even get certificates upon completion of them. I highly recommend downloading the Zoom desktop client, as there are many things that you can do there that you can't do elsewhere. The BBC also has a group of virtual backgrounds that are blank BBC sets that you can use as your own virtual backgrounds. I got mine there as well. And if you just want to see one or two quick video tutorials, you can go to the Zoom Show Me Videos section. Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure presenting for you today. I am Alyssa Valenti-Krosky, Director of IT and Marketing at NYLI, and this is the new NYLI Skills Series. You can feel free to contact me with any questions that come up after today's presentation. And here's a link to the presentation, so you can access it via this bit.ly link if you want to see my Canva presentation. And in the live session, I had a survey pop up after the meeting ended for all of the participants to go in and take part in. And that is just one of the great features of Zoom. Thank you, everyone.